Okay, hello everybody. We're going to do a series of reviews for the ATM Internationals in 2021 in Nephi, Utah, which was an amazing event, and then also 2022, which was in Bermuda High, and then Uvalde is also going to be a series where we just follow along and do the SeeYou flight review, and this exercise is 50% for me, just so I have a record of it. I do a little bit more detail on my own. I've done it long ago, but a few have asked me to kind of go back and do this one, and it's one that I really enjoyed. So here we are. Here's the results for day one. And let me jump over to SeeYou, and we'll sort of describe the task. But real quick, John Seaborn won the day. You can see 3 JS3s, 1 through 3, obviously. And then Evan Ludeman, who finished 4th in an ASW 27, which is quite impressive. Then Rick and I in 29s, then a JS1, a Ventus 3, another JS3, and a Ventus 3 rounding it out. So only 2 29s in the top 10, and this was a mega day. It was really, really hard to hold on to the modern gliders, and especially the JS3, especially John and Andy, frankly. There's no question that at those speeds, I think the average speed for today was 173 kph for the winner, that they're making money as they move all the time. There are no weaknesses, climb just fine, and obviously if you pick the right climbs, there's no issue there. So this was an amazing flying day. There's a great review of the flight if you go to the SSA website, which I think unfortunately most of you can't get to because it's kind of a secret society where everything is behind a firewall and passwords and all that stuff. But anyway, I'm going to share it here with you anyway. And Rich Owen writes these really great articles pretty much for every contest day and every contest that he flies. And thank you to everyone who writes these articles, Rich in this case, because it's really helpful to go back and kind of review. Here we are 3 years later, what happened during this task. The weather forecast was poor. There were thunderstorms in the area. You'll actually note that the sports class got aborted. There was a sports class contest running simultaneously, and they chose to cancel the day. There was so many rain showers and thunderstorms in the area. We'll go over the task here in a moment, but you can see it's southwest start, Kenosha to the south, Kenosha Canyon, then Pine Peak, which is out towards Ely, out in the middle of the Nevada desert there, quite a barren landscape. Then Drum Mountain to the north, and then Delta Municipal, which is just southwest of Nephi, and then back home over the mountain range west there. You could see the storms brewing to the south, but they were still outside the task area, but only just. They were actually in the middle of the southern task area, which was quite an issue. But this is the ATM Internationals, and these pilots are prepared for that kind of weather. And as you can see by the speed, it didn't slow anybody down very much. And what other pieces of information can we have here? Anyway, there's a full description here in great detail from Rich, and just for the sake of time, I'm not going to read it, but it helped me kind of reset my memory and remember what we were doing on this day. So thanks, Rich. And again, just a quick review of the results there, and let's jump right into the task and SeeYou. So I have the top 6. Actually, I have the top 10 organized in order here. I'll put that up right now. And this is the 3D view, and then here we can see the task. I'll zoom out just a little bit. Mouse is really sensitive in on this Mac Parallels version of Windows. But here you can see Ely out in the desert. Here's Nephi. Here's Salt Lake City and Provo, the ski areas. And then Parowan right here. So you sort of get a feel for this task. There were storms here and here, a big rain shaft sort of lined up along this high terrain here. And in the first leg, you've got the high mountain ridges and valleys here. So obviously you want to stay on the high terrain. But here, it's all sort of homogeneous terrain. There's no more mountains and no more triggers, no rivers or landscapes. It's just desert. A little bit of mountain terrain out here, not too much. And then and obviously a 30K turn area task around the first turn point of Kanosh. Same around Pine Peak. And then up here to Drum Mountain, that's 10K and 10K radius, and then on into the finish. There was airspace here that was hot. I think it's this line right here. So it touched that last turn and somebody got caught and took a 0 for the day. Actually, we might be able to look that up. Not to pick on anybody, but that's a big no-no. I do not see the penalty. Maybe they got rid of it just for housekeeping's sake. But anyway, so, a fairly difficult task with a lot to think about. Thunderstorm down to the south, first task of the contest, out into the desert around the thunderstorm. It's quite windy on this day, and you'll notice from Rich's review of the day in the article that the landing was 20 to 35 knots, and there were some ground loops and some issues landing. So this was full-on sailplane racing, not for the faint of heart, not for a beginner for sure, and but pretty well handled here by the group, as you can see by the speeds. Certainly the best of U.S. soaring here in this group. I'm at 20. We'll do that until the start. Now, I'm going to zoom in here a little bit on the 2D, just so you can follow along a little bit better. And I'll zoom in a little bit more. You can see the starting line depicted right there, just southwest. That's the southwest start. And so the starting line is perpendicular to the center of the first turn. And another cool thing here is this camera is now facing at a 180 degree angle, which you can see represented there by the 180. That's a setting that you can use in SeeYou, which is kind of nice to be able to see. You can see Nephi here, the finish cylinder. This is Provo Lake and the big Wasatch Mountains here, the valley, and then Eli is off the page out here on this 3D view. We'll zoom in here a little bit. So all of these, it's really cool. All of the tracks are gray until the start begins, and then they turn colored once the glider actually starts. So it's a nice way to sort of see that the first starters have departed here. So you can see a very early start for November 1 Kilo. Hotel Whiskey, which actually does quite well for the day. JL, very low start there. And you can see in the gray, those gliders haven't started, but you can see right over the starting line is where those traces turn to color, and you can tell those guys are off to the races. There was a checkup, so FAI starting process today, where as the last few gliders are launching, everyone had to come down to a minimum altitude and touch below that altitude anywhere in the contest area, and then they were free to climb back up and start at any altitude as they crossed the line. And I believe we were starting at 14 to 15,000 feet plus. The maximum altitude you can fly in a glider contest in the U.S. is 17,500 feet. That's Class B airspace ceiling, minus 500 feet for safety, so that someone doesn't actually punch through it accidentally and also actually break the airspace. So the penalty comes 500 feet below that to avoid that kind of a mistake. All right. You can see the wind here depicted. It's out of the east right now, and I'm going to center this up just so we have the best view here at about a 120 heading. So we're looking in about this direction. Okay. And zooming in just a little bit, looks like I'm getting ready to climb here. There's a big gaggle right there. A lot of people going up are already out on task, and I'm sort of positioned right along the starting line where nobody can sneak by me. I'm able to keep an eye on everybody who's starting, and my goal is, it's the first day of the contest, not to take any big risks, not to make any big mistakes, keep an eye on the key players, and go out and have a fun flying day. So I'm at almost 16,000 feet here. Alpha 8 is in this gaggle right here at 5908, just 200 feet above, but he's going to lose some of that altitude as he travels to the line. And I'm going to slow this down a little bit. All right, so there we go. So there goes Alpha 8. That's John Seaborn, Hotel 7 right on him. And then I go out just maybe a mile or two behind them. And really, if you look at the 2D view here, it's a pretty good time to start. You have about half the fleet already out. There's storms this day, so there's some risk of being out late. And there's some risk of that thunderstorm down in the first turn area drifting back up into the turn. I think it was slowly moving north. So the longer you waited, the more you risk that first turn area closing in on us. So definitely wanted to zoom out just a little bit. Sorry about the clutter here, but there you can see the whole group in the 3D and here in the 2D. So it's been about, 5 minutes since I started. Now there's only a handful of people remaining. Zulu Lima, Zulu Oscar, the author of the article, Rich Owen, 2 Tango, 9 Bravo, who did well. He was second for the day. So here's the guy who was second for the day. Here's the guy who was third for the day. And the guy who's first is right there ahead. So going to the south here, you can see the actual sort of satellite view. We are out over a valley right here, which you can see with these farm fields, another valley over here, but we're just following the high terrain down to the south as much as we can. And one of the big reasons that you'll see deviations is most glider pilots tend to fly right above the high terrain as best they can. Although right here we're actually over a valley, so we're probably following some clouds. Papa 7 leading us out. And you can see the velocity task. Everybody's in the 200s at this point, which would be a pretty incredibly fast task. Oh boy. Okay, so here I am pulling into the next thermal, and we'll start taking a look at that. Romeo Fox was an early starter. Hotel Whiskey was an early starter. Here's Alpha 8 and 7 Tango. So let's see. Alpha 8 started a minute or two ahead. Looked like. So I'm at 13.9 and he's at 14.7. So that's 800 feet. But we're climbing at 4 and a little under 4 knots. So that's or meters per second, so that's 8 knots, so it's about a minute behind. So we're actually right on pace there. And the speed task 205 to 208. I'm actually ahead of him, but I don't think that factors the climb. So he's slightly above, and that's why the average speed is slightly less for him. It doesn't account for the added energy, the added 900 feet that he has. Now, I don't have the contacts for any of the other pilots on this day. I can say that as we were coming down this leg, we're only, 25 miles down to the south of Nephi at this point, but the view to the south and that thunderstorm in the first area was becoming more and more frightening. All right, so there's 9-8. There's 7 Tango, Bravo, Bravo, and where'd Alpha 8 go? Alpha 8 is pushing hard, and 8-9 are right with him. So John flies his JS3 just as you should. He runs very, very fast, probably 10 knots faster than anybody else, and often 20 knots faster. And as long as he keeps hooking up climbs, that's phenomenal. But you can see his ground speed here with a little bit of tailwind is 272 kilometers per hour. So do the math on that. He's booking. You can see I'm going 231 kilometers per hour. So that's 40K. So that's 20 miles an hour faster. Just something to notice there. And all these little pull-ups and accelerations as a glider flies through lift, it generally wants to slow down, and it wants to be moving as fast as possible as it's going through sinking air. Kind of imagine it as crossing a river. You want to go very fast across the river where the current is strong to get across it as fast as possible. Same thing, just think 3 dimensions. So there's a different line there. Alpha 8 is probably 2 or 3 miles ahead right there, just to give you a sense of scale. These gliders are enlarged so you can follow them and see them. And it looks like I'm leading this group right now. And I'm probably, all things being equal, trying to get up and over the high ground. Alpha 8 and 8-9 are kind of working in their own group here. You can see Papa 7 that started very, very early is now very low, and we've already caught him. So starting early is often a challenge. All right, let's keep on going. You can see here we're already getting into this first turn area, and there is a thunderstorm right here, kind of all in this area. Let's see, Alpha 8 pulls into a climb, 4 meters per second. And you can see I sort of responded to that. He'd be right there in front of me with a big wing flash, and definitely wanted to be as high as possible going in and around this thunderstorm. And I pull in and I get 4.8 meters per second out of that climb. 5 meters per second, as you can see right here. 5 meters a second is over 10 knots. And once again, it looks like I'm deviating left a little bit, just because the higher peaks are to the left. And you can see the wind here is indicating a little bit west of north. So just the hopes that there's a little bit more up deflection over the top of the mountain. Speeds have come down a little bit after a couple climbs in the 186 to 190 range. You can see Papa 7's already been caught and passed by Alpha 8. I'm abreast of him there. One thing I kind of like to show is this is really good tactical positioning. Keeping a trace on the fast pilot out ahead, 8-9 with him, another very fast pilot, and trying to stay in touch and above the group around me. And you can see our positioning there as we move into the first turn area. And maybe the storm was here, but we were definitely trying to sneak in little gaps in between the thunderstorm, and there was kind of a wall cloud there. So Alpha 8 pulls into a monster there. You can just tell by the cork. 6.1 meters per second. Wow. And I get 5.4 meters a second from below, but I think Alpha 8 is starting to extend. It should be getting into 12-knot climbs. But there, once again, tactically, this is a pretty good position. On top, people are spreading out. I think these guys are running up the shelf, and there was a rain shower here at some point that we all went through to get maximum distance. I wish I had more details to describe, but there was a lot going on here, and you could tell by 8-9's going straight south, and Alpha 8 is cheating pretty aggressively this way to avoid the rain. So you can see that just an odd movement around. Probably that was the rain. 9-8 and Papa 7 probably went through the rain a little bit. You can see another guy going around it. And let me zoom out just a little bit so we can see what 8-9er did. Whoa, so sorry. So here, this group stayed on the high terrain and punched right to the back. And then you can see a massive deviation here from this group. So there's always decisions being made in glider racing. It's very complex. You can see one guy, Bravo Bravo here, made his turn. 8-9ers going to the back. Alpha 8's in a 4-meter climb here. I pull in and get 5.6 meters underneath him. And the reason you do that is Alpha 8 is bleeding here because he's having to center the lift. He's leading his group. And the trailers are able to come in. They know right where the thermal is. And as the glider in front is altering his circle, you get a more accurate understanding of where the core of the thermal is. You don't have to spend as much time centering, so you get a little stronger climb average. So there's 8-9er. He's going back almost the same direction that he did. Just thinking about something there. When Charlie got a little bit more distance, and so just to show you, so all of that deviation, essentially they got maybe 4K more lateral distance, or 3 miles or something, almost nothing. And we're all basically still together. So, probably a slight gain to 8-9er here at this point. Average speed to this point still 184 for Alpha 8. DG's at 197 at this point, and 8-9er's at 183. 7 Tango is at 182. So all pretty much tied at this point. So now I'm facing the camera basically west. Here's the next turn area, and I'll zoom out a little bit over here so you can see. And now we're going out into the open desert. And another massive change of plans here. If I zoom in just a little bit, you can see Alpha 8's gone more to the north, and Papa 7, Hotel 7, 9-8, Alpha Alpha, and 7 Tango are headed to the south, which is lining them up to touch the southern edge to get maximum distance here at the next turn area. Alpha 8 is making a decision to do something slightly different. It looks like he's kind of aiming towards the middle. And these are interesting tactical, strategic choices, but a lot of it has to do with guessing on the time. Generally, in glider races and area tasks, you want to go to the back or the maximum of the first few cylinders if you can, and then trim off the others in order to cut distance to get back on time. But this is such a short task that, and let me go back and review, I think it's only 2.5 hours. It's such a short task. Oops. They don't show the time here, but from Richard's report, I think it was only 2.5 hours, and we can see from the finish times what that was. But it was a relatively short task, so being in a position at least to max this out if the conditions are strong is probably a good idea. But then again, Alpha 8 wins the day. So you can see he just came out of a good climb. He's up at 15.3, and I'm at 13.5. 8-9er is right with me. I'm below him. Oh, 8-9er kind of went in a different route, but we're all here. You can see how low Papa 7 is and how low Tango 8 is. Tango 8 had an amazing task. Hotel 7 had a very good task. There he is in a 4 meter per second climb. Here we are pulling into our next climb, 3.8 meters a second for about 1,500 feet. That'll be relatively short, only 2 minutes. You can see Alpha 8 has pushed well out ahead. He's at 14,000, and he's definitely gained some distance. So if we look at the average speed to this point, he's at 178, and I'm at 168. So he's found a stronger climb, and he's definitely extended. Looks like I'm above everybody here now. I'm at 16,000 feet here. Oh, this is some of the stuff we were actually climbing in a straight line. We were lining up some convergences or something off the thunderstorm where we were able to stay quite high. And here's alpha. We're basically a beam of alpha 8. Here's alpha 8 right here. Here's 7 Tango right here. We're aiming to the southern corner. By the way, you can see where I've turned here by this blue line. So I go quite deep into the second. Most of the group seems to be cutting it short and going to the middle of the second turn area here, Pine Peak. And this is absolutely tiger country. There's nothing back here. There's no towns. There's absolutely nothing. There's barely any roads. And you're pretty deep in the wilderness. It's 100+ degrees down here, and not the friendliest environment, not a great place to land out. Only a 2.9 meter per second climb there, so I only take it for maybe a minute. Looks like 2 turns. Alpha 8 is almost to the dead center of that turn area now, and we are a little slower, but going to the back, so we're going to get some more distance here. There's no problem with getting more distance or being overtime. One of the concerns you might have is being early or undertime here on such a strong day. So Alpha 8 has given up some distance, although he may choose to go all the way to the back edge here. But there's more potential distance by going right here to the very back left of the turn point, so to speak, to maximize the available distance. Another weak climb, only 2.3 meters a second. So I ended up 6th and about 5 kph slower in average speed, and I clearly can see that for whatever reason, tactically or strategically, I chose to go for the maximum distance, and for whatever reason there was maybe a little bit more lift here, and you can see why we got so slow. 6th is not bad for the day, but I think sometimes I try and push for the distance, and I don't follow the best available sky because I'm afraid it's going to give away too much distance. And here I'm suffering in a 3 meter per second or 6 knot climb for 6 minutes, and that's just not going to cut it in a racing task. But sometimes strategically you need to take weaker climbs and sort of consolidate the loss as not to get into a bigger risk of a land out or getting stuck. So you can see the yellow trace there I've made. That's the turn that I made. Nobody really goes quite as deep as me there. Romeo Fox and November 1 Kilo. November 1 Kilo have gone right to the back of this. And keep an eye up here. This is an active airspace, and someone violates it and gets a penalty. I bet you the trace isn't available anymore. A little bit of housekeeping that's done for these contests. So a long flat glide here. You can tell it's flat because I'm not really doing a lot of pulling, slowing down, ups and downs as there's lift and sink. But you can also see that it's a pretty flat glide. There's some pretty powerful glides here. 142 negative. Zulu Tango gets a negative 932 for 27K. So there's some long hunks of lift that are being utilized here. You can see Tango 8 has basically caught up to me. He was way below me on the other leg and found a really strong climb. Here you can see the fleet progressing up into the third turn point, Drum Mountain. You can see it right there on the 3D view. And here's 7 Tango, 8 Niner, and Alpha 8 really far ahead now. Smoking. So here's 7 Tango, and here's Alpha 8. So I went a little bit more distance. Yeah, it's about the same distance, I suppose, this distance as to this distance. Now, obviously, there's another risk, and that is if the conditions shut off and you go too far or too late in the day, you can run out of lift conditions and not be able to get back to the airport, which is a huge risk. But I don't think this is that kind of a problem today. I think the rain was mostly to the south. We've already made it around it. Now it's just about finding the strongest conditions and getting home as quickly as possible. And I'm going to kick over here a little bit. You can see 9-8, who I was running with on the first leg. Tango 8, there's Alpha 8 making his turn off of that big climb. Alpha 8's up at 15,000 feet. I'm back here at 15,000 feet as well. And Alpha 8 got a maximum amount of distance out of that turn. So he left 15K, actually it's 30K here, but he's going to get a little bit more distance than I am because it looks like I'm just going to go to the middle or maybe the top middle of this turn. Still quite high, almost at 15,000 feet. And looks like I'm just gonna, well, you can see where I'm gonna turn right here, up at the top. Tango 8, Holland Butt is at 13,000. I'm also at 13,000, so Tango 8 is absolutely flying. That's only a 15-meter glider. And doing really well. Hotel 7 was 10th for the day, I believe. And there's 8-9er. So I did get out ahead of 8-9er, but it looks like 8-9er is a little higher. Climbing here at, again, 3.2 meters a second, so it's definitely weaker up here to the north. That's a 4-minute, 30-second climb for 3,000 feet. Not the best climb, because this is almost a final glide climb here, although it is into the wind. I don't know why it's showing 9K. It was much windier this day, as you could see from the slope of the climbs. And you can see the first finishers getting in, getting near final glide to the finish. There's Alpha 8. You can see Alpha 8 here. And 7 Tango right here. I'll zoom in just a little. So I turned this one really short, so lost a lot of distance there. It looks like Alpha 8 got back all the distance that he lost right here in this turn. That's 10K across, so you know he got 10K of his shorter distance back, and he's definitely farther ahead of me than he was at the start. I maybe have gone a little bit more distance, but he is he's definitely progressed ahead. It looks like he's about, I don't know, 5-6 miles ahead, where he was maybe 1 or 2 miles ahead at the beginning. And that's all it takes for 5 kph per hour at faster average speed on a very short task. And very interesting final glide here. You can see into the wind of a 32 LD, Alpha 8 37, 9 Bravo 44, 45 for DG, the Tango 8, which is a ASW 27, only a 15-meter glider, 26. That actually makes sense. You can see some guys here scrapping up, trying to get a little additional altitude. And in this wind out in the valley, there is probably no climb left here. So you literally have to make it. You can see here I'm trying to get across the high terrain. There should be sink over here, and there'll be lift on this side right above the rising terrain. And I'm guessing a 6,000 foot finish altitude, and looks like, yeah, 6,500 maybe. So there's the finish. And that was day 1 of Nephi. Pretty exciting. I wish I had video of the day and the thunderstorm and all the other risks and craziness about this task. How windy it was here on the landing. But I don't have any of that. But at least you got to see generally how the leaders broke up and chose to start and chose to fly the task. Hopefully I described how that thunderstorm was negotiated down there in the first turn area. And yeah, I think that's a good review of day one. We'll do the rest of the days here in the days and weeks ahead and keep this as a sort of video library for all of us to look at. All right. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll talk to you soon.